This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Hey, welcome to this week's show. I got something kind of unique and different for you, an interview with one of the loveliest and funniest comedians in the business, and calling all the way from Nuremberg, Germany. Let's hear it for Lois Bromfield. Lois, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to hear your voice. It's been, we were just talking about it. It's been a little over 30 years, but I feel like we've always been friends. We had a lot of fun together.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. I mean, I'm really old, and so are you, right? We're old. It's been a really long time. It's almost weird.
I try not to make it.
And you're in Sacramento. We're so far apart. It's like a 9-hour time difference. It's the other side of the world.
Well, you've been in Germany for a number of years now, right?
I've lived here for 10 years. 10 years, and I still haven't learned German. It's the worst language. It's so hard to learn. I've learned some of it, but most people speak English because they're smart. They learn a bunch of languages, but you know what it is about living here? It's great, and we live in a small town. But I always go to London and I go to Berlin and I perform in comedy clubs there, and it's really fun. And the London comedy clubs are the best, and Berlin is pretty good, but they are Germans, so they're not always the best audience.
Yeah, there's always.
You're lucky if you get fun Germans.
It's always been a debate if there's a sense of humor in Germany, but you know what? I want to hear about that, but I'm going to take you back a few years just for my podcast audience. We worked together for over 10 years back in the 80s and early 90s before you became a big TV show writer and producer. But before that, share with us just a short story how you ended up in comedy, because being a female comic on the road has got to be one of the toughest jobs out there. When did you decide to get into comedy?
I don't remember. I mean, I was young. I was in New York City when I was 1920. So I went to New York and worked at the Improv, and then I came out to California. And you know what? Honestly, I didn't really want to be a road comic. That wasn't the whole idea of that I hated. And what was great about working at your club was it wasn't a road gig, because I only had to drive from LA to Sacramento, which was like 5 hours. So a road gig to me was having to get on a train or fly somewhere or do some big long hauling, like just 2 or 3 days somewhere, or going all the way down to Atlanta, Georgia, or going someplace where you're so far from home that just makes you feel like a hooker, So it didn't feel good. But your club was great because I only had to. It was short. It felt almost like just going home. It didn't feel bad. So I'd go to your club. And I try to remember if you put us up in a hotel or in a condominium. I don't remember now.
It mixed up a bit. We had an apartment for a few years. We had a house for a few years. Some of the special acts got a hotel. But what was now, just to give them a little background, you were born Canadian, correct?
I was born in Canada, and I came to the States illegally. I actually came to the States when I was 20, went to New York. So then I got a Social Security number. This is the best part. I go and I told them I was from Iowa. They just believed me. They gave me a Social Security number. I've had it ever since. And then I went to California, and I met Stevie, and I got married to him. And we got married. I got my green card, and then we stayed married for 15 years.
We should mention to everybody.
I became a citizen in 1998. In 1998, I became a citizen. Yeah.
We should mention to everybody that she's referencing her husband, Steve Moore, who was a very funny comic. He worked Laughs Unlimited several times. And in fact, you guys used to come up together kind of as a team and work together. And we want to say something nice. Not only was he your husband back in the 80s to help you become a citizen, but sadly we lost him in 2014. But he was a really terrific guy and a good comic. And I think it's nice that we at least get a chance to mention that. Steve Moore. Yeah,
thanks. I appreciate that. He was a really good guy. He was my good friend for so long, and he just was a warrior. Like, he just did anything. If I'd say we're going to get on the train, we're going to go to Atlanta, it's going to take like 2 days, he would just do it. He just was a really open, sweet man. And when I lost him, I cried for a week. I mean, it was just, I was so sad that, and even now I think, how is it possible he was gone? He was 59 when he died, and
just too young.
HIV positive. That was a long time because he had it for 20 years.
Yeah.
But losing him was terrible. I lost a lot of friends this past 5 years because people are getting older. You know, I'm 65, and my friends are all in their 60s, and so.
Well,
yeah.
But we want to make it clear to everybody that you really were, you are a beautiful woman. You were one of the best-looking gals on the road, and I heard you recently describe yourself as the Doris Day if she was a biker, which is so funny.
I haven't said that for a long time.
But if you're over,
yeah.
but if you're over 50 and know who Doris, right?
That's how I looked. Don't you think? I mean, my hair was crazy. I was out of my mind. I mean, I'm still out of my mind, but it's different. It's a little more palatable now. But then it was really, I was just off the charts. I didn't have any boundaries. I didn't have any control. Sort of like I just did anything, said anything. And when I look at my stand-up now, I think, holy crap, what was I doing? Because now the stuff I talk about now is about being gay or being in a relationship and about getting older, and so it's totally different subjects, you know.
Well, that's what happens with age and experience. Yeah. But in your case, you said it was off the charts. I was telling you before we started recording, you were always fun, and I think that not only did that make it enjoyable to share time together at the club and even away from the club, but I think the audience picked up on that you had a fun, loose, kind of a wild side. You were pretty and you were funny. I mean, Lois, you're a funny gal, and that came across on stage, and that's really what made you a success. We always enjoyed having you at the club, and you did some of our biggest shows. You did one of our New Year's shows. I mean, you were one of the best.
Thank you. That's really nice. I remember that. I remember all of that. I mean, I remember it being fun, and Steve and we always had fun with you. You always let us drink a lot. Drank a lot. We did. We drank a lot. And it's funny because I hardly drink at all now. I mean, I have one glass of wine and I go to sleep at like 10. So it's not, the wild days are kind of over, but I remember your club really well. I remember exactly what it looks like on the stage, and the people, it was good audience. The audiences were good. Really good. Although New Year's was always New Year's is a hard gig anywhere. It is, because people get so blasted. So, but yeah, I think I must have been at your club at least 24 times in the years I lived there. Maybe a dozen times.
Oh, it was quite a bit, Lois, because as I said, you were one of our favorites. Now, not only, so you did a lot of road comedy at that time. You were cruising around doing different clubs. How did you become a comic?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I was living in Canada, and I was, my family's basically, I mean, my family is pretty show business oriented. My brother was a director, and my sister became an actress, and my parents worked for the government, so go figure how that works. But I don't know. We just we just decided to get in the show business and leave home to get away from my father. He was so terrible. So I think we all just tried to find a way to get out of the house, and that was the best way. And plus, we were all funny. I mean, my sister is really funny, and my brother, brilliantly funny people. And so we just found humor as a way to survive, and then to leave home fast. And you know, for me, this was all I wanted to do, laugh. And so I figured this could maybe be a career, and then that's what I did. Like every other person who did stand-up, I think it was the same story.
Well,
it's a survival thing, I think. I think people do it to survive something, whatever it is, whatever. For me, it was just fun, and I loved it. And when I perform now, which I don't do very often, I can't tell you how great it is. When you get older, it is just better. It's better. People look at you differently, you know, because your looks don't distract people from it, so they just listen to you. And the audiences are different when you're older. They're better.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm glad that you're enjoying that. Now, you when you said you escaped Canada and your father, you went to New York and you hit Dangerfields and the Improv there. You did some showcasing, and then do you remember what year you came out to California?
I came out to California in 1980. As a matter of fact, it was Christmas 1980. I came to see my sister. I had no intention of staying. I was going to come back to New York. But then I went to the Comedy Store, and I fell in love with the Comedy Store and with every single thing about Los Angeles, and I just stayed. I never went back to New York until 2001. I went back to, after 9/11, I went back to New York, 2002. So it was a long time.
Yeah, did you, you must have made friends with Mitzi, and I'm sure she appreciated your comedy and worked you a lot?
Yeah, of course. She made my career. I mean, without her, I wouldn't have done any stand-up at all. I would have done nothing. I don't know what I would have done. It would have been hard to have gotten my foot in the door. So she gave me the opportunity to work on the stage every night, and I worked there a lot, every night, almost every single night. And then people like you made it possible, because it was a road gig that was close, and it was easy to do, and it gave you an experience outside of the city. So I got to leave the safety net of LA and the LA clubs and go somewhere else. And your club was great that way. The same as there was clubs in San Francisco I did. But I got to tell you, San Francisco, I never connected there. I don't know why. I never connected with people in San Francisco, the audiences. Never, ever. And for some reason, with you, I did it. In Sacramento, I had a really good time. But San Francisco is so close to you, but for some reason, it's just a different deal.
Well, we ended up being really good friends, and not only did we do a lot of activities away from the club, but I even watched your dogs for a while. If you remember that, yeah, they were at my house for 6 months. You were in transition, and I had your dogs for a while. But we used to do a lot of things. Do you remember? We opened the club in 1980. You came out to LA in 1980. I know you came to work for me pretty early. Now I'm the same age as you, so I don't remember the exact year or date. But do you remember coming up in how you got work at Laughs Unlimited?
I don't remember. No, I don't remember that. I don't remember the first time.
We were just instant friends.
I don't remember how you found me or I found you. I have no clue. I might have, there was no email then, so I might have called, or I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, I was going to LA a lot and showcasing acts at the store and the Improv. I may have seen you in one of the shows and approached you, but I didn't have a memory of that, and I was wondering if you did. Not a big deal.
I don't remember it at all. No, I don't remember. I remember the first time I came there. I don't remember how I found you or you found me. So I just remember it being a fun gig because it was easy. And this is what I loved. And I don't know how road comics, I personally hated the road. So I maybe did, I can tell you the amount of clubs, maybe 4 clubs. In the Punchline in Atlanta, your club, and maybe 2 others. I can't even think of them right now. But yeah, I hardly ever did the road. I hated it. And I would say to my agent, I don't want to do the road. I want to do television. The road is a slow way to get known. I want to do television, And then he got me television jobs. But after a while, I sort of said, I don't even want to do stand-up. I'd rather write and make more money and not have to go on the road. So.
Well, you were. It's interesting that you say that, because, as I mentioned, you were one of the funniest headliners and always seemed to have such a great time on stage. But it is a tough life, and the fact that you have a show business family and you wanted to get into that. And the good news was, by the late 80s, early 90s, you were writing for television a lot. We do want to share with the audience that you were one of the lead writers on the Roseanne show, correct?
I wasn't a lead writer. I was one of the writers. But I was one of the writers. I was on the show from 1991 to 1995, 3.5 seasons. And that launched my career as a writer. And so then I did other shows, tons of them after that. Grace Under Fire, and then Amy Sherman, who, I don't know if you know who Amy Sherman is. She's doing this show called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And God,
I know who she is. Amazing.
On Amazon Prime. It is so good. And she started on Roseanne, and she became a hugely successful writer. And now she's won, 3 Emmys for this show. And I got to work with her. I got to work with great people coming up the ranks in Roseanne and all the shows I worked on for about 15 years. I worked as a TV writer, and now I wrote a book, by the way.
Oh yeah, we'll have to tell the audience about the book. Before we leave television writing and Laughs Unlimited, let's just close that up with a quick story. When you were working Laughs, it wasn't just that we had fun at the clubs, but I don't know if you remember, but we went gambling once in Tahoe. We went to the gay bar Faces and went dancing one night. We used to do a lot of fun things.
We did that? I don't remember the gambling at all. I don't remember that. It's so long ago. I have no recollection of that at all.
Well,
awful? That's awful. I know. I don't remember that because I did that a lot, almost everywhere I went. So I don't remember specifically doing that, but I'm sure I was. I loved gambling, so I'm sure we went gambling like crazy.
Well, the point I wanted to get across on the podcast was that we felt lucky to have you as one of our entertainers because you always thrilled the audiences. You're always fun on and off stage. And we felt a friendship with you that we didn't have with all the acts, in that we were doing fun things away from the club because we enjoyed hanging out together. And it was just nice to have you. And we wanted to say thanks for those years of great comedy and being part of the growth of Laughs Unlimited.
Well, that's really, really, really nice of you to say. And that's really sweet and really kind. And, it's funny because and so many years later, I didn't know that's how you felt. That's really huge. That's a really big,
well, Lois,
generous thing to say. It is. It's just really nice. I'm stunned.
Well, we had a lot of...
I thought it was a pain in the ass.
No.
I was young and a pain in the ass and running around like a lunatic and drinking and completely out of control. So to hear that is really a surprise. That's nice. So it's nice to hear. I had no clue that's how I was perceived.
Oh, yeah. You were... We still talk about some of our favorite headliners, and your name's always in the mix, Lois. And it's so great to be able to catch up after all these years and have a conversation like this. So let's take it back to Hollywood. You were writing for the Roseanne show. Now, I noticed that they made you producer on 5 of those shows. I'm not as familiar with television. I've always been on the fringe of show business. What's it mean that you are a writer and a producer of a particular episode? Does it just mean more pay, or did you actually do more work? How's that work?
There's a bunch of writers, so you get assigned a script and you go and write it. Maybe you co-write it with somebody else. Sometimes you generate the story and somebody else writes it. It depends. It's a group effort. It's all done by committee writing. And then you go off and you get the credit either for the story or you get the credit for the writing. And
okay.
I don't know how many. I wrote a lot of episodes, but I co-wrote with people. And producer means there's just different levels of pay. That's all it is. So when you start off as a staff writer, you're getting a certain amount of money. Then as you move up to producer, co-producer, supervising, and then co-executive, and it gets great because you start making more dough, and you start getting less sleep, and you get fatter. So it's great. That's how it works.
Well, it's important to make a living, and it is great that you were finding ways to make more money at the time. Now, what that also led to, and I thought this was interesting, is that you actually made appearances on Hollywood Squares, which had to be one of the most fun shows to be on, and also on Match Game. And I'm sure that was from the connections you made at Roseanne. But what was it like being on those kind of game shows with all those celebrities?
Yeah, that was before Roseanne.
That was.
Roseanne. The Match Game, all those shows were in the 80s. I didn't
Wow.
do this after Roseanne. After Roseanne, I didn't do any stand-up. I did stand-up rarely, but I didn't do any television stand-up at all, none. So I maybe did one show. I did Arsenio Hall once, but those shows were way before that. They were in the 80s.
Really?
Yeah, those were in the Match Game was like 1983, 84. And all the shows I did, all the silly little shows I did were 80s, yeah. In 1985, 1986 maybe. But,
well, that had to be a lot of fun, though.
It was just Roseanne. Once you become a TV writer, you're just getting TV writing jobs, and it doesn't really lead to much else because you're writing. They don't see you, you're not visible. And the only time I really got any connections was when I appeared on the show, because she would make every writer do a spot on the show on one episode. So I did 2 episodes, and I had a very small part. And then you get stuff. They say, "Do you want to come up? We saw you on TV. Do you want to come to our club?" And I go, "No, I can't. I'm working 130 hours a week. I can't come to your club. I'm too tired." But yeah, I mean, working as a television writer was huge. It was a huge privilege. I loved it. I really did. I really loved it.
So
and I still do. And this is why I thank Roseanne a lot, because without her, I don't think I would have had a big writing career. It was really a big break to get on her show in the beginning.
Well, it was a #1 rated show.
Yeah, it was huge. It was a great show, and the writing was great. I was really lucky to learn that way.
Well, I think it's interesting because you're the first one I've talked to that got your start as a stand-up comic and transitioned to television writer. And you didn't do a lot of stand-up during those years, but you're doing some stand-up now. So how much of a hiatus of actual stage work was there, or did you always keep your toes in the water? Yeah,
I always get my toes in the water a little bit, but when I came here, when I came when I live in Germany, I figured I wasn't going to be doing stand-up anywhere, because where was I going to do it? I certainly couldn't do it here. And then I started to discover after a couple of years that there's amazing clubs. So there's a club in Berlin called the Quatsch Comedy Club, and it's really big, and they're everywhere. There's about 5 different clubs up in the northern part of Germany, and then into the Netherlands and Belgium. And then the biggest discovery was in London. I went to London, and I sent this guy that I knew my CV. I told him what I did. I sent some of my stand-up from a long time ago, and Munich too. And he wrote back. He says, "Well, we fucking love you. Shit. Oh, you have to come here." So I go to London. I go literally 2 days later. I go to London, and I got to tell you, man, this club. You would love this club. This club was so great. It's just packed with people. Everybody's got huge amounts of beer in front of them. Nobody's belligerent. Nobody's yelling at you. They're just fucking laughing. They're just laughing. They're just attentive and smart and laughing, and they're young, and they're great. The room holds about 400 people. It is such a great room. And so that's when I started to think, you know what, I'm going to do stand-up while I'm living here, because why not? So I've been doing that maybe 3 times a year. I go to London, and then maybe once a year I go to Berlin, or once a year to Munich.
You had a really terrific, fun set back in the 80s. Did you have to have your old material refreshed? Did you write new material? Did you even remember your old sets from the 80s?
Yeah, I didn't do anything. The stuff I'm doing here is nothing like what I did in the 80s. No, I let go of all that, because I was saying I was straight. Remember, I had to keep saying I had a boyfriend. I could never say I was gay. I could never say it. It wouldn't have worked anywhere. I could have worked for you, but the audience would have. The audiences just didn't receive it well. I don't know if you remember that, but anytime that even Stevie, when he was there, he was pretty obviously a gay guy, and I think a lot of people didn't like him because they kind of looked at the guys, gave him a hard time. The audience sometimes gave him a hard time, but it wasn't really the warm reception for gay people to come out of the closet on stage and say they're gay. And for me, it would never have worked. So it wasn't until I got older, until I got here, that I could go on. I didn't come out of the closet on my act until I came here. So I was in my late 50s.
Wow.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, I see. I didn't live that lifestyle, and I booked a lot of gay entertainers, and it didn't mean anything to me. Funny is funny, and I didn't allow or notice anything at my clubs that might have been impolite to an entertainer for any reason, whether they looked a different way, had a different sexual orientation, whatever. We didn't allow that kind of stuff. And here in California, it is better than it might be in other states, at least back in the 80s. But it's interesting that you felt that way, because and it's true, I don't remember that ever being a part of your act, but it wasn't a secret either, at least as far as we knew.
No, I never made it a part of my act. In the book, I talk about it. In my book, I talk about how hard it was, because you couldn't. Because you just wouldn't get work anymore, and I wouldn't have. And so for me to say I was gay, especially on television, I told my agent once I was going to come out. I came out on the Arsenio Hall show, and the audience booed me.
No.
They freaked out. They really just flipped out. They booed me. Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Isn't that unbelievable? Yeah, I know. So you kind of have to go, oh fuck, what am I supposed to do? How am I going to work? And so if you want to keep working, you have to just I had to figure out, I did gay clubs. When I did my big video, my Sorority Girls from Hell video, I got to do gay clubs, and that was great. I could say anything, but I had to do both. I had to sort of ride both sides of the fence. I had to do the stand-up and say I was straight and married, or not married, or dating, or whatever, and then the other side I could say I had a girlfriend. It got confusing.
Yeah, that would be challenging, and we should mention that was one of your pièces de résistance. The Sorority Girls from Hell is a famous Lois Bromfield bit. It's actually already appeared on this podcast in an earlier show, I believe from that New Year's show. But anyway, it was one of the funniest bits. And then when you did the video, it's been seen millions of times. It is a great, great bit. But I know that you'd move on from that. That doesn't ever appear in your recent club visits, right?
No, I tried it a few times, but it doesn't do well here. It does really well in the States. People kind of get it more, because nobody knows what the sorority house is here. They didn't understand it as well. But I do totally different material now. I mean, I talk about other stuff. So, and I talk to the audience, and I talk, it's a little way more relaxed and less crazy. Still, it gets dirty, but it's good dirty. It's smart dirty, as opposed to just gratuitously dirty. But the audiences here are really good. I mean, they're great.
That's fun. Now, tell us about your book.
Okay, so the book is called My Dirty Life in Comedy, and it really sort of takes from the time I left New York City and came to LA until I left in 2001, right after 9/11. That's the span of time it covers. But it's really, I've chosen very particular stories to tell, really important time frames to when I got there, and the shows I did, and then Mitzi Shore, and going on the road, and not running out of money, and the IRS chasing me, and all my girlfriends breaking up with me, and like just one. It starts off so great, just like one disaster after another, but it's really funny, really really funny. Working on Roseanne and working on TV shows and making money, and yeah, people and all kinds of stuff. I mean, things that happened to me in LA you wouldn't believe. I have a whole chapter on how many times I had to poop outside in California, because everybody shits outside in California. I don't know if you realize that. Do you know that in LA people have all kinds of problems with their stomach and digestion, and they're so neurotic that they end up shitting everywhere in the city.
I don't think I was quite aware of it. I haven't lived there, so
it's true. I mean, in Sacramento, I think people are more civilized, but there I heard stories, endless stories, but people who'd get sick on the street, or they'd have diarrhea somewhere because they didn't get an audition. I mean, it's just like unbelievable poo stories. And then I had it happen to me. So the book is about every single thing, and that's why it's called My Dirty Life in Comedy, about guys that came on to me, and some famous actors that have a whole thing on Warren Beatty, how he followed me around LA for like 2 hours one afternoon, and just crazy shit like that. But it's really funny, and
so is the
really
book?
True, and it's pretty gritty.
So
in fact, the minute I'm going to do an audio book on Audible, but I'm also going to get some books printed, and I'll send you one. I'd love for you to read it.
Oh, I would love to read it as well. Now, is it available to the public yet? Is it out?
It's not out yet because of the pandemic. I couldn't record it. I was supposed to record it this month in Frankfurt. I was going to go. We have a really nice studio there, but I can't do it because nobody can go anywhere. We have a lockdown here. So
it'll be
probably after Christmas. So it'll be out sometime in January.
Well,
but I'll let you know.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to have a copy, and also an audiobook done by you, and just knowing your personality. I think that would be the way to go. That would be terrific. So, ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye out for My Dirty Life in Comedy. Will be available everywhere because Lois is such a big star.
Yeah, right. I'm a huge star. Look at my dog is wondering why the hell I haven't walked him yet. That's how big a star I am.
Well, Lois, thanks so much for...
Shit. He doesn't care what I did. I'm just the dog mom now. That's it.
Oh, it's so funny. Well, you've had a great career, starting off as a talented comedian, working a couple of the biggest clubs in the U.S., converting to a producer and television writer for television. That makes sense. Television writer for television. I sound like a genius. And then moving to Germany, which had to have been a big transition for you, and yet still being able to find your root in comedy. I think that you should be very proud of all you've accomplished.
Thank you. That's really nice of you to say. Yeah, it was a huge change. I come back to the States a few times, or a couple times a year, but right now I'm not coming back because I can't. But it's been a big transition, and it's amazing here. If you ever come to Europe, you come and visit us. We'll take care of you.
Sounds good. And when next time, if you come out to the West Coast, let us know. We would love to hook up. We're going to be spending lots of time in LA, and we'd love to see you. Thanks so much for doing this podcast and sharing your story. We'll make sure that your book, My Dirty Life in Comedy, is out there for all to hear and pick up. Again, thanks for all those years of great comedy and in our friendship.
Thanks for making it so much fun, and thanks for being one of the nicest club owners ever. Really lucky to have you, because some of them were not so great, but you were one of the best ones. So,
well, tell you what, I'm going to end this podcast with a little bit of stand-up material by you, and give the audience, they've heard you before in earlier podcasts, but we're going to give them another taste. So Lois, stay tuned just for a minute, but I did want to tell the podcast audience, we have a great set coming up from Lois Bromfield. Thank you so much, Lois, for being a part of the podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Lois Bromfield. Thanks, Lois, for doing this.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I don't know, I feel good tonight for some reason. I'm Canadian, first of all. Any Canadians? No Canadians? Oh, good. Great, a ride home. Great. I gotta tell you, truthfully and honestly, this outfit, I got it in Beverly Hills. I stole it. And, because God knows you can't afford that stuff, huh? Yes, sir. I love shopping in Beverly Hills because the people there are so real and down to earth. And they're great. I love shopping in the real expensive stores because they play music that makes you buy stuff, you know? You don't want to buy anything. You walk in, you're kind of depressed. You kind of got your Gemco card. Those are hard to get. And you're really feeling bad, and all of a sudden you hear that music. Da-da-da-da. Da-dun-dun-da-dun-dun. After about 10 minutes, you're going, hey, okay. $80. I'm a jerk. Yeah, let's go. Come on. Walking out with stuff you don't want, you know. I get real mad, too, at signs. They always have real stupid signs in change rooms. Like, I went into the store the other day, and there was this big, huge sign, and it said, please do not remove your undergarment, please. Real mad. Like, one day, a woman came into the shop, real suspicious looking, you know, like your undergarment's a lethal weapon, right? Woman came into the shop, real suspicious looking, glasses, a trench coat. Goes into the change room, looks at the sign, laughs. Takes off her trench coat, takes off her glasses, takes off her undergarment, comes in. Okay, everybody, stand back. I've got my undergarment off and I'm taking these jeans with me. Let's go. I don't know what it is. I'll tell you quite honestly, you know, I turned 30 in April, and it's a devastating age. You know, it really is, because when you turn 30, they say that you start to reach your sexual peak. Now, I don't know who they are, but I'm going to hurt them when I find them. And it scares me, too, because while you're reaching your sexual peak, your car insurance goes down, okay? And I think that might be a little dangerous, don't you? I mean, Friday, Saturday night, feeling a little on edge, go to a bar, pick somebody up, gotta go! Driving past those high schools to find guys in their sexual peak. Yes, sir. I don't know. But it's true. When you're with a guy, like, you can't be a pig. And this happened to me. I was having dinner. I didn't eat much, so my stomach was kind of empty, you know? And you know that attractive sound your stomach makes when it's empty? That kind of... We're sitting in the car. A couple hours later, we're driving along. All of a sudden, my stomach goes, come on, let's go, people, man, food. Come on, stop. I see a place. It was horrible. He pushed me out a block from my house, and didn't have a relationship, but I didn't care because I was near food now. That's all that mattered. But you know that great feeling when you finally get home and you can finally be a pig, be yourself, right? You go into your bedroom, you change into your eating clothes. Boy, that shirt with the food on it, you know? And then like a real lady, you go into the kitchen, unhinge your jaw, and tip back the fridge. Boy, does that look nice. I don't know. It's not right. I got to tell you one thing. It's really, before I go, I was, this week I went to see a lot of movies, and I love scary movies. I love them, but, you know, they never make any sense, right? Because people in the films never know they're going to get killed. And no matter what happens, you know, you hear that music. It's like, I watched this one horror film, and they showed this woman, right? She decides to go out and take a drive. Worst thunderstorm in 100 years, right? You know that music they always have in horror films? Kind of, dun, dun, ah, dun, dun, wee-woo, ah, dun, 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 dun. She gets in her car. She starts driving. Dun, 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 dun. This is on television. I'm sitting there going, lady, where are you going? What are you doing? Dun, 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 dun. The windshield wiper's going. Her car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, so she gets out of her car. Where is she going? Dun, 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 dun. She's gonna go nuts. Dun, 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 dun. I'm going, lady, get back in your car. Dun, 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 dun. She starts walking down the road in the pouring rain. All you can hear is her shoes in the mud going. Dun, 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 dun. She's walking. Cars are passing her. Her car passes her. I'm turning the TV on and off. Lady, go home. She sees a house. There's things flying out of it, right? So she goes there to get help. She She starts walking towards the gate. There's a dog on the porch going, no, go back! But this time I'm going, lady, no, I'll help you, I'll come get you. She walks up to open the door. Now, if I heard that music, I just wouldn't go in the house. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lois Bromfield, live on stage from the late 90s. I know you enjoyed that set, and if you've listened to some of our earlier podcasts, you could hear parts of Sorority Girls from Hell, her famous bit from the 80s, being redone in a shorter, tighter version. Hey, it was so nice to hear her voice. Great interview, great set. Thanks for joining us in this week's podcast. Stay tuned next week, another great show. Hey, thanks for listening. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.